All right, so in this next block, we have some Second Amendment. I had to make choices this week. There was a woman who defended herself successfully against a road rage incident where this guy got out of the car and came over and started beating her up. And she produced her pistol and shot, and he went away, and then the police picked him up. But that is not the story we're going to show you, because there's a Twitch streamer, which I guess is a thing, who apparently had like a whole bunch of crypto and said a whole bunch of things online, and that enlisted like 4 people, because there's a video of them running up, and then you hear the gunshots, and then you see them all trying to get out of there. But it was an organized, like thuggish type of break-in, theft type of situation, and people should act as if self-defense is a thing. I'll restart OBS once I get into this block. Also, the gold in Fort Knox, is it there? If it's not, what's going to happen? How will we know what's going on? We have a report from Valuetainment's PBD, and then we have the last piece in this block is a massive grift uncovered. DOGE uncovers Biden's $375 billion slush fund with the Clinton Foundation. I'm interested in that. We might have to go to the history blueprint for that as well. All right, without further ado, let's jump in and see what we can learn together, and then we'll keep sewing the news together for the rest of the evening.
If you've been on the internet at all, you probably know who Amaranth is. For those of you who are like me, she's one of the biggest streamers out there. She made her name on Twitch and Kick and has built an empire off of her content. But the downside of being famous on the internet is the wrong people start watching you.
Oh, right here. It's in here.
I'm so tired. Come on. Go. Hurry up.
So here's how it went down. On March 2nd, 2025, Caitlin Amaranth Siragusa, I'm pretty sure I butchered that, was the target of a violent home invasion at her house in Houston, according to reports from the Houston Chronicle. 3 armed intruders broke into her home around 10:40 p.m., pistol whipped her, and demanded access to her cryptocurrency. They knew exactly what they were looking for. During the attack, she suffered significant injuries from being beaten, and these guys weren't playing around. But here's where things flipped. Her husband reportedly intervened and shot at the intruders, potentially injuring one of them before they fled.
Give me all your gold. The government wants your gold immediately because of war, and we gotta come and take it from you. And if you don't, because people say, he didn't say we're gonna take it from you, but he did say if you don't turn it in, it's a $10,000 fine and 10 years in prison. So is that a take or is that an option, right? Do I give it to you? Do I not give it to you? Holy shit, you want to take all the gold from me? They do. And when you think about, like, how many times have we gone and inspected Fort Knox? Only 3 times. You ready? One in 1943, which was FDR, one in 1974, which was Congress, and one is in 2017 when Steve Mnuchin under Trump went in and said, I think this thing is there. However, it's important to know this, that even then, they see just one compartment under heavy escort. Even then, you couldn't go and touch it and say, can I see, count it, can I see, count it, can I see? That has not happened, right? So this is very interesting, prompting a lot of different questions about whether the gold is there or not. We're going to talk about that today. The last full detailed audit with physical verification of all gold was done in 1953 under Eisenhower, when only 5% was tested. Subsequent audits from 74 to 86 covered 90% over time, but these relied heavily on sealed compartments and spot checks, not a comprehensive bar-by-bar count. Since 1986, annual audits check seals, not content.
The Biden administration funneled at least $20 billion into environmental groups, most of which had only recently been founded. In one case, former Vice President Kamala Harris handed over a check for nearly $7 billion to Bethesda, Maryland-based group Climate United Fund, which does not appear in the IRS charities database and has no federal filings. $7 billion.
No, it's incredible. Climate United Fund was one of the 8 entities that received a total of $20 billion that the EPA moved off its books to Citibank just before the transition. Remember there was that whole thing with Lee Zeldin?
No.
We're throwing gold bars off the Titanic.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So that's one of the funds. And so I was looking at all those groups. And Climate United Fund, it wasn't even a website until like last August.
And like $7 billion.
Somebody gave it $7 billion before it had a website, basically.
Got $370+ billion involving John Podesta over a series of years, and no one's going to mention the WikiLeaks. Or aside from WikiLeaks, do you know what a chief of staff does for a president? Do you ever watch House of Cards? That guy, Doug, who arranges the assassinations and makes sure that his presidential candidate doesn't have to. That's what those types of people do. They also are the holders of the blackmail and the passwords and all these other things. And Podesta, famously, he had a password of password, which is what started the whole WikiLeaks, Hillary Clinton email campaign, archive, and all the various things that got put into that. Because that scandal that was tying in people like Podesta and other people he was working with, some real heavyweights, they are tied together through a George Soros extended foundation of his Open Societies Foundation, using a proxy of American Bridge 21st Century to give money to the place where the thing took place. And, you know, these other things that happened along the way, they're not going to be mentioned by the Matt Taibbi, even though once upon a time he was telling you about the giant vampire squid of Goldman Sachs and those sort of things. It's like he walks right up to the line and then he's like telling you a story about Russia instead of the actual story that's still unfolding in this country, which involves people like Joseph Robinette Biden, who used to allegedly, according to his daughter's diary, take showers with her in an inappropriate way. He's the father of Hunter, who has the most infamous laptop in history. You know, those types of things, the hugging of the kids, all those types of things. You need to layer all those things together and then see what the picture is. Because when you look at it as, well, they just did some slush fund stuff, and you extract it from like their most dangerous secret that might be in the Epstein client files, you know, it's disingenuous and doesn't do justice to the victims whatsoever. And it helps to run cover for people to continue doing that. Just like Mark Thompson going in at New York Times, right, when that incident was happening. And he had a prior experience to get him that job because he helped to cover up the Jimmy Savile abuses at the BBC. So there's a lot to that. And $370+ billion is worthy of scrutiny. And I think that they should figure out where that money went, because I bet they uncover some of the human trafficking aspects that unfortunately still go on with those NGOs and other foundations like the Clinton Foundation. But
you would have thought that with such a massive screw up like John Podesta did by having his email hacked by such a lazy password, that he would have been demoted or deranked or something amongst all of the intelligentsia. And instead, he must have a whole lot of dirt in his role as a fixer.
Yeah, not just on his walls. I bet he's got collections otherwise on people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and his brother too, Tony Podesta. That's where like a lot of the art was found too. And then of course, like perfect point, Paul, because like he didn't like get ousted from the political party at all. Like he was, remember the whole like 2020 election when they were saying how, you know, if somehow Biden loses, they're just going to run a coup and they're just going to install like a puppet, or they're just going to install their own government. They're just going to break off. And Podesta, they were wargaming it. He was playing the role of the president they were inserting in this like coup scenario type situation. So it's like he's, you know, remained a heavy hitter despite, you know.
Well, I think it's his spirit cooking probably keeps him going.
It's definitely I think it's the blackmail thing. Like he knows where all the bodies are buried for sure. I mean, good Lord.
He quite possibly, yeah, he might. And that's not talking about the Madeleine McCann case whatsoever, or the sketches of the people who allegedly helped her meet her demise being similar to people that might have had something to do with those WikiLeaks. But those are all dangerous topics. We are asking for our friends, and none of us have plans of self-demise. So Epstein client list shenanigans are ongoing. There are people that claim they got some stuff, but no one has seen any evidence being dropped in the past week. After all the hoopla of the week before, and everybody coming out with their binders, and then everyone figuring out, everybody here had known about that for years. All that stuff's publicly available. A lot of it's listed on the FBI website. It's in their like reading room and stuff. So until real documents come out, there's not going to be any type of justice, and you're not going to have real documents coming out because we are still sending billions of dollars to one of the countries who funded Epstein in the first place. And the other one, we're still quite cozy in a special relationship with. So I don't see how any of the real truth of Jeffrey Epstein is going to hit the light of day in an approved way anytime soon. But I always hope that maybe WikiLeaks has some new submission that they leak at some point. He's out of prison. And maybe like that gets back to work and becomes a force for truth, justice, in the American way. You know, collateral murders, how they started, leaking that tape of them whacking those Reuters journalists on film and kind of being happy about it. And they took umbrage against Assange and set him up on that sex trial bullshit. And then they made him hang out in the Ecuador embassy for like 10 years. So anyway, those things all come in full circle. Maybe some people will start to realize the enormous amount of money attached into such things. Like if there's nothing there, if there's no smoke, there's no fire, $370+ billion into a slush fund that a whole bunch of questionable people that we've been looking into for like over a decade and found mountains of evidence that the public won't talk about or recognize, which goes back to Taibbi's like, I don't know if that's where his leash ends, right there. You can go up to that point and say no more. Maybe he just wants to keep doing business in that marketplace. I don't know. But there is so much more that is already known that is being left off the table. One has to ask what that's all about. Oh, what you got there?
Oh, I'm just testing. Okay, well, I got the blueprint right here myself. So I'm just testing my functionality and capabilities, and I might have some input at some point. So there you go.
Oh, cool. Do you know how to search it?
I'm getting there. Yeah, I'm getting there. Yeah, but my plan is to utilize it on my new format of my new show and to shout out where people can get their own copy of it, do all that stuff. And I need to become versed in using this as a tool in my critical thinking.
You know, that map was born in 2008, and you'll see a clip later tonight where it's 2 years old.
Nice.
Because we do have
That's
a clip
awesome.
with Paul and I from 2010 that we're going to play.
Everyone's doing some kind of self-help these days, and you can find a million self-help courses out there. Most other courses out there are hosting lectures. They're hosting videos. They're maybe even doing Q&As. And these are great starting points to encourage learning. But at Autonomy, we believe that hands-on practice is the best way to really lock in what we're learning. There's no better way to gain confidence and mastery than through action. After each lecture, we practice the concepts we've learned with other students, giving and receiving feedback in a non-judgmental environment. The result is mastery of concepts like entrepreneurship, ethical sales, and self-reliance in an environment that directly translates to the real world. Plus, you make connections with other like-minded individuals who are learning right alongside you, and you have a lifetime membership in the community. The Autonomy course with Richard Grove equips you with confidence, competence, and courage in a world filled with confusion and noise. You can learn more at getautonomy.info. We'll see you there.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come on.